this seems rather intense. What's been going on?
Well, the war in Ukraine has been continuing, even though we really haven't covered it because the weather vane tends to point towards the war in Israel, but it has been pretty intense. But we've never seen this level or this intensity of drone attacks. Over 70 drone attacks over Kyiv overnight, as you say. 5 injured so far. Some of the devastation, seeing some of the pictures here, it's pretty significant. So we expect to see more injuries. These drones, whilst themselves they're relatively slow, they haven't got big warheads, they're relatively vulnerable. They don't cause a lot of damage in terms of strategic value. But when they do hit a target, they can take out a building. And, of course, when they are shot down, the debris hits buildings and still the explosives often go off as well. President Zelensky had warned that to expect a massive uptick in the number of Russian attacks as the winter approached. And, of course, it's very reminiscent of about a year ago where Russia intensified attacks, particularly against Ukrainian energy infrastructure in advance of the sort of harsh winter that's about to come in the coming months.
Yeah, we're trying to get onto that. In the meantime, most of these drones have been shot down, so they've got some good defence, haven't they, the Ukrainians?
They have, and so these Shahed 136 drones that are shown here, they've been brought in from Iran. Russia has been using a large quantity of these, but largely drip feeding them in. And Ukraine's got very good at shooting them down. You don't need sophisticated equipment to get these things out of the sky. But what seems to have been a change in strategy by the Russians is if you deluge a defence, if you literally overcome a defence with quantity rather than quality, then actually some will get through, and that seems to have been what the logic is at the moment for this. There's also been reports in the press that President Zelensky's been appealing for more air defence missiles for Ukraine. So therefore, it's not unusual for the Russians to go, Ukraine must be short of air defence missiles. Let's deluge their defences, deplete them even further. Then when we do attack critical structures like the energy infrastructure, that it's more likely to get through.
Right, as we mentioned the winter then, we're going into the second winter of the war. How are things playing out? How is that likely to affect campaigns?
Well, normally, under winter, you'd expect to see the campaigns freeze. The harsh, literally and metaphorically, but the harsh reality is Ukraine said it's going to keep fighting. If we look across from sort of west to east, across to the west of the Dnieper River, Ukrainians have made an advance across there, seems to have stalled a bit. Across the River Robotyne, that's where the main Ukrainian offensive was, heading south. Again, they've made about 15 kilometres progress. It's not moving fast at the moment because of the weather. The big fighting has been around Avdiivka and Bakhmut. That's where the Russians are clearly on the front foot, desperately trying to make progress, which they're not doing at the moment, despite huge casualties. The big killer at the moment is also the weather, because obviously winter's settling in. October, November is the heavy rains, then it freezes, and then actually it just becomes difficult for the soldiers to survive on the battlefield. And this will be something where the West's support to Ukraine hasn't just been front-end weapons and missiles, it's also been high-tech clothing. And as somebody who's used poor kit in the winter, this stuff is going to be much more valuable and could be a key differentiator between the Russian forces and Ukrainian forces, could allow the Ukrainians to stay on the front foot, largely through something simple as a very, very well-insulated jacket and gloves.